NBC News actively covered up Harvey Weinstein's abuse of women. That was clear months ago when the story first broke, and we told you about it then. It's even clearer now. The remarkable thing is that NBC is still lying about it, but more elaborately. In a long memo released last night, NBC News chairman Andy Lack spent 11 pages claiming that his network couldn't air Ronan Farrow's investigation of Weinstein, the same piece that later ran in The New Yorker and won a Pulitzer Prize. There just wasn't enough evidence, Lack said. There weren't any on-the-record allegations against Harvey Weinstein. Well, that is false, and now we can prove it is. On her NBC show this morning, Megyn Kelly bravely pointed out, because she still works there, that there was, in fact, an on-the-record source against Harvey Weinstein. It was Rose McGowan. And NBC knew this because McGowan's claim was included in a script that made it to the very top of the company, and that included the general counsel of the company. We spoke to a source by phone who read us the pertinent line from that script. Here it is. Quote, in later conversations with NBC News, she, Rose McGowan, specifically named Weinstein. Well, there you have it. That's the story right there. Done cold. Of course, NBC also had videotape shot by police in New York of Harvey Weinstein himself confessing to abuse on camera. So they had the whole thing nailed. And they suppressed it, and it protected Weinstein. Now they're lying about it. We probably shouldn't be surprised by any of this. NBC News also lied about the infamous Access Hollywood tape, which they leaked to the Washington Post on the eve of a presidential debate in order to influence the outcome of that debate and the election. And then to compound the crime, they fired and humiliated their own anchor, Billy Bush, for the crime of, actually, we're not sure what the crime was. But we do know that NBC lied to its viewers and to the rest of us throughout that whole episode. We have asked NBC repeatedly to account for it. How did a secretly recorded videotape that was their property get from their offices to the hands of NBC News chief Noah Oppenheim's college buddy, David Fahrenthold, at the Washington Post? We asked that question because transparency is at the heart of every legitimate news organization, but not at the heart of NBC. They won't answer our question. That's not surprising. What is surprising, if you think about it for a minute, is why NBC didn't run the Weinstein story in the first place. They knew it was factually true. It was news. It was a story. It met the definition. But they also, more critically, knew that Ronan Farrow might hurt them if they killed the story. And, of course, in the end, he did hurt them badly. They knew that might happen, but they killed it anyway. Why did they do that? We decided to investigate this question, and we did. We spoke to a number of people with direct knowledge of this story. And here's what we got. Harvey Weinstein had a long and documented history of using private investigators to unearth damaging information about people who threatened him. He did that repeatedly to many people. He did it to the New York Times, for example. Did he do that to the leadership of NBC? People close to the story believe that he did. Some within the company believe that Weinstein threatened to reveal damaging information about NBC's then biggest star, Matt Lauer. So we asked NBC about this today. We asked directly. They answered a number of our questions, but notably, they ignored our question about Matt Lauer completely. That's interesting. Here's another question. How many people within the hierarchy of NBC knew about all of this? One obvious person to ask is Chuck Todd. He's the network's political director. He's the host of Meet the Press. Todd is a famously connected guy. Information is his currency. How could he not know what was happening inside his own company? NBC gets the biggest scoop of the year and then kills it mysteriously. Of course Chuck Todd knew. What does he think of that? Is squelching first-person accounts of sexual assault by powerful men consistent with Chuck Todd's view of journalism? Is it ethical? Did Chuck Todd ever complain about this inside the building at NBC? Why didn't he quit over it? Or is it better just to shut up and pretend that sexual assault didn't happen in the hopes of keeping the highest-paying job he'll ever have? Maybe that's the answer. We don't know for sure because Chuck Todd didn't respond to our questions when we reached out today. But we'll call again. Soon we'll have occasion to call because the Daily Beast is preparing what sounds like a blockbuster investigation into serious and widespread personal misconduct, both at MSNBC and at NBC News. It sounds shocking, and from what we can tell, it sounds true. We'll check back with Chuck Todd when it comes out, and we'll see what he has to say. Meantime, Larry O'Connor is associate editor of the Washington Times, and he joins us tonight. So, Larry, NBC has changed its story just within the last 24 hours. Initially, Andy Lack said we had no on-the-record evidence or claim of any alleged victim of Harvey Weinstein. That's why we didn't run the story.
Right. Couldn't run it because they wouldn't go on the record.
Exactly. Now, the script has come to light from last summer in which Rose McGowan is quoted saying, on the record, he abused me. Now Lack is saying we had no on-camera, on the record accusation. A, shouldn't he admit he lied? And B, you don't need an on-camera account to run it.
Of course, especially when you've got Harvey Weinstein on video from the New York Police Department basically apologizing for the sexual assault against the one victim that sort of blew the story apart. Also, can we pause for a moment and talk about the irony of NBC News saying they won't run a story if someone won't go on the record? How many anonymous sourced stories have they run over the last year, 2 years about the Trump administration? None of those anonymous sources go on the record. So why is it different here? And why would it have to be
such a good point.
And a sexual assault victim? Think about that for a minute. You know, it takes a lot of courage for these women to step forward and speak with Ronan Farrow, and Ronan should get tons of credit. He already has, and it's all deserved. But think about the courage that these victims had to show to come forth, tell their stories, and point the finger to the most powerful man in Hollywood. And NBC News is aiding and abetting that man by saying, you've got to show us your face. You've got to give us your name. That's outrageous what they did to these women.
Look, we're all flawed, and all news organizations are flawed. But covering up for Harvey Weinstein is really at a different level. I know a lot of people at NBC, and I like a lot of them. There's some decent people there, for sure. But you got to wonder how some of these people can work there without having addressed it. Chuck Todd, for example. How can Chuck Todd host Meet the Press without at least issuing a statement saying, I agree with Andy Lack's lies, or I distance myself from his lies? I mean, how can we believe what he says if he's standing by this nonsense?
Well, of course, Andy Lack is his boss, right? And by the way, let's not forget Mr. Oppenheim. Noah Oppenheim, who's the president of NBC News. His name is on these memos, too, and he's all in on the exact same story, that we didn't have anybody go on the record. They also said
he's running around, by the way, running around. A lot of these executives are running around NBC tonight, I know for a fact, telling its employees to shut up.
Yeah.
And that itself, I mean, I don't want to use the term cover-up, but is that the behavior of a transparent, integrity-filled news organization?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
And the behavior of the mafia.
You mentioned Megyn Kelly showing some courage this morning, coming out and saying, listen, we've got 4 people now on this side of the equation. Ronan Farrow, his producer, Rose McGowan, and one other woman who was named in this story, saying, this is what happened. We were ready. We had it. Ronan Farrow has said that the story even made it all the way up to the general counsel of the network. And Andy Lack, Noah Oppenheim, and all the executives are saying, no. Megyn Kelly saying, hey, someone's lying here. She wants an independent investigation. How about that irony? Should we get a special counsel to investigate the NBC?
It takes an awful lot of guts, and I hope that she gets the credit for the guts. Yeah. I mean, that's what journalism is. When you stand up and say the unpopular but true thing, do you think that's being rewarded at NBC?
Not at all. What's being rewarded is Chuck Todd. You know, you mentioned Chuck Todd. He spent the last several days talking a lot about journalism, talking a lot about how the media is the most unpopular entity in this country right now. And he's blaming everybody except, you know, clean up your own house. Look at what's going on in your building right now.
So, in other words,
Chuck
your
Todd.
company covers up for an accused sex criminal, and you never address it, but you're empowered to lecture everyone else about their shortcomings.
That appears to be what Mr. Todd has been engaged in.
But why wouldn't it be fair for
days.
Viewers of NBC to say, Chuck Todd, look, we're not accusing you of hurting anybody or being Harvey Weinstein. We're accusing you of abetting a cover-up, working for a company that obviously participated in a cover-up for Harvey Weinstein. Why don't you address it?
Yeah. Yeah, you would think that they should be asking those tough questions of Mr. Todd, but I haven't seen it quite yet. Well, we're asking them now. So,
we are.
Chuck.
A lot of cowards in journalism. Larry, you're not among them. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.